In the shadows of a massive limestone mansion, where the air smelled of expensive lily and old money, Amara clutched her medical bag and tried to keep her hands from shaking. She was a professional, a woman who had seen the darkest hours of human suffering, but nothing prepared her for the coldness of the Harrison estate. Her patient, the once mighty billionaire Arthur Harrison, lay trapped in his own body, a prisoner of a mysterious stroke that had stolen his speech but not his awareness. Amara could see the silent screams in his eyes every time his wife Beatrice entered the room with a smile that never reached her cold, calculating eyes. The tension reached a breaking point on a Tuesday afternoon when the porcelain mask of the family finally shattered into pieces of jagged glass. Beatrice stood in the grand foyer, her face twisted in a mask of artificial outrage, while her son Julian smirked from the mahogany staircase. They weren't just firing Amara. They were destroying her, accusing her of the one thing a caregiver could never recover from: theft of a dying man's dignity. As Beatrice shoved Amara toward the door, throwing her coat into the dirt, she leaned in and whispered that a nobody like her would never be believed over a somebody like a Harrison. But as the heavy iron gates groaned shut behind her, Amara didn't look back with tears of defeat, but with the cold, hard gaze of a hunter who had already trapped her prey. Hidden in the lining of her modest uniform was a tiny micro SD card, a digital witness to a crime so heinous it would make the city's elite tremble in their silk sheets. She had found the one thing they never expected her to find: the truth, recorded by a lens they thought only they controlled. The game was far from over. In fact, the first move had just been played, and the Queen was about to realize she had been playing against a grandmaster. Before we dive into this incredible journey of betrayal and justice, I want to take a moment to connect with all of you watching. We are so glad you are here, and we would love to know who is joining our community today. What city or country are you watching from? Please drop your location in the comments below so we can say hello. And if you love stories where the underdog fights back and truth prevails against all odds, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Give this video a big thumbs up right now to help us bring you more amazing content. The story truly began 3 months ago when Amara first stepped onto the polished marble floors of the Harrison Manor, her heart full of a simple desire to heal. She had been recruited from a top-tier agency because of her impeccable record and her specialized experience in neurological recovery. However, from the moment she crossed the threshold, it was clear that the family didn't want a specialist. They wanted a ghost. Julian, a man in his late 20s who had never worked a day in his life, greeted her not with a handshake, but by dropping his dirty gym bag at her feet. Beatrice Harrison was no better, treating Amara like a piece of furniture that had been delivered to the wrong address. She would walk past Amara without a word, her nose crinkled as if she were smelling something unpleasant, issuing orders just to watch Amara struggle. "The nurse shouldn't be so visible," Beatrice would often snap, her voice like ice scraping against a windshield. Amara remained silent, focusing her energy on Mr. Harrison, who lay in a state-of-the-art medical bed in the master suite. Arthur Harrison had been a titan of industry, a man who built an empire from nothing, but now he was a shadow of himself. His room was filled with the rhythmic beeping of monitors and the sterile scent of antiseptic, a stark contrast to the opulence of the house. Amara noticed almost immediately that Arthur's condition was inconsistent. Some days he seemed alert, and on others, he was a vegetable. She began to suspect that the vitamins Beatrice insisted on administering personally were not what they seemed to be. Whenever Amara tried to review the medical charts, Julian would find a way to humiliate her and block her path. One morning, he intentionally tipped over a tray of expensive crystal glasses and demanded Amara clean it up with her bare hands. "Since you're so good at being at the bottom of the food chain, why don't you make yourself useful?" he sneered. Amara simply knelt down, carefully picking up the shards, her dignity intact while Julian's soul seemed to rot. Despite the constant verbal abuse and the racial slurs whispered just loud enough for her to hear, Amara stayed for Arthur. She felt a profound connection to the man, who would often grip her hand with surprising strength when Beatrice wasn't looking. It was as if he were trying to transmit a message through his fingertips, a desperate plea for help from a man drowning. Amara began to keep a secret log of his reactions, noting the way his pupils dilated with terror every time his wife entered the room. One rainy evening, while the family was out at a charity gala, Amara was deep cleaning the medical equipment. She noticed a strange, tiny red flicker reflected in the glass of the fore stand, coming from the mahogany clock on the wall. At first, she thought it was a malfunction, but her curiosity got the better of her as she climbed up to investigate. There, nestled behind a wooden cherub, was a high-tech pinhole camera, perfectly positioned to capture every inch of Arthur's bed. Amara realized the camera wasn't part of any official security system. It was a private feed installed recently. She realized the mockery she endured wasn't just about race. It was a distraction to keep her from looking too closely at the room. Amara knew she was taking a massive risk, but she had to see what that camera had captured to save her patient. She used a small tool from her medical kit to pop out the memory card, replacing it with a blank one from her own supplies. As she tucked the card into her pocket, she finished her shift with a mask of calm, even as Julian returned home and threw coins at her. That night, in her small apartment, Amara plugged the card into her laptop, her breath hitching as the files loaded. The footage was a nightmare. She watched Beatrice enter Arthur's room in the middle of the night to taunt him. The loving wife would lean over her paralyzed husband and whisper how much she hated him and couldn't wait for him to die. The most damning evidence showed Beatrice holding a syringe, injecting a clear liquid into Arthur's foreline, a powerful paralytic. "Keep him quiet, keep him still," Beatrice muttered on the tape. "Just a few more signatures, and the empire is mine." The camera captured Beatrice grabbing Arthur's limp hand, forcing his fingers around a pen to drag it across a legal document. Amara felt sick as she watched Julian enter the frame, laughing as he watched his mother forge the papers. They were killing him slowly, stripping him of his wealth and his life while pretending to be a grieving family. Amara knew she couldn't just go to the local police. She needed a plan that left no room for escape. The next day, she began to subtly counteract the toxins Beatrice was injecting with herbal supplements and stimulants. She whispered to Arthur, "I know what they're doing. I have the proof. Just hold on, Mr. Harrison." For the first time, she saw a single tear roll down the old man's cheek, a sign that he understood. However, Beatrice noticed Arthur was becoming more alert and that Amara was spending more time near the clock. The trap was sprung on Friday morning when Beatrice walked in holding a diamond necklace she had planted in Amara's things. "How could you?" Beatrice shrieked for the staff to hear. "I trusted you, and you steal from our family?" Julian dragged Amara toward the entrance, throwing her belongings onto the sidewalk while shouting insults. Amara didn't fight back. She let them play their roles to the end as she stood on the sidewalk. Beatrice leaned in close. "You're a nothing, Amara. Go back to the gutter where you belong." The gate slammed shut, but Amara simply pulled her phone from her pocket to call the FBI and Arthur's original legal team. She told them she had high-definition video evidence of attempted murder, forgery, and systematic torture. While Amara worked with the authorities, Beatrice and Julian were inside the mansion, popping champagne to celebrate their victory. Suddenly, the massive front doors were kicked open by federal agents as Amara walked in with her head held high. "We have the recording from the clock," an agent stated, pressing play as the room filled with Beatrice's own incriminating voice. The biggest shock was Arthur himself being wheeled in, sitting upright and pointing a condemning finger at his wife. Beatrice and Julian were let out in handcuffs, their life of unearned luxury over, while Amara stood as a symbol of justice. Thank you so much for staying with us until the very end. Please don't forget to subscribe and like this video.